This election is a reminder that the most important thing we all do is protect our democracy, and that is to protect our democracy is to make sure that we have an accurate and full count of our vote. And that's exactly what Pennsylvania is doing right now. It's not surprising, as I've said before, that this election, the returns are taking a little longer than we're used to. But that's actually a good sign. Part of the reason for that is because so many more people have voted. And it does mean that votes in Pennsylvania are actually being counted. We're taking the time to make sure that in this new system that went into place the end of last year, that all the votes are being counted. Again, the vote is central to our democracy. It's how we all choose the people to be our public servants. This is the hiring process, the election. We have to have fair elections, and those elections have to be free of external influences. We need to have confidence that people are choosing their leaders and that the leaders are not choosing the people who vote for them. We need to make sure that the voters are choosing the leaders, not the other way around. Elections are the bedrock of our democracy, and our Commonwealth and our country thrive when people freely exercise this franchise. And that's why it's essential that every eligible vote is counted in this election and in every election. We've seen efforts across the country to undermine this election and to block the counting of votes. This afternoon, the Trump campaign filed a lawsuit to stop the counting of ballots in Pennsylvania. That is simply wrong. It goes against the most basic principles of our democracy. It takes away the right of every American citizen to cast their vote and to choose our leaders. These attempts to subvert the democratic process are simply disgraceful. We're going to fight every single attempt to disenfranchise voters. We will continue to administer free and fair elections in Pennsylvania. Let me be clear, in Pennsylvania, every vote is going to count. I'm going to fight like hell to protect the vote of every Pennsylvanian. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that every vote counts. Because in Pennsylvania, every voice matters, every vote matters. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what's possible, but I think if you're talking about the Trump lawsuit, the one that Rudy Giuliani talked about, I think they were concerned about the lack of openness and transparency. Well, the Philadelphia that they're talking about has been streaming the processing of ballots, I think right from the start, from the pre-canvassing period. I mean, I think it's being live streamed on their website. So I guess you can get it, anybody can get it anywhere in the world. So I'm not sure how that equals a lack of transparency. It seems to me it's never been more transparent than it is right now. I don't know, Kathy, you are a lawyer. You want to say something?
I mean, we can't comment on active litigation, but I can tell you that we will oppose every effort to at any point shut down the vote. We get to decide when the last vote is counted.
Do you have any estimate on how many ballots are at stake in those categories that they're trying to stop?
So no, I mean, I think that as I'm not sure if you were here earlier, I think it was this morning that I was asked, and we really won't know the full scope of the universe of ballots until the canvas is finished. But I can tell you, I mean, for the late arriving ballots, I think it's actually, it seems to be so far a much lower number of late arriving ballots than what we saw in the primary. So, but again, it's anecdotal. I've only heard from a couple of counties, but large counties from opposite ends of the state, it was both a very modest number of ballots. So that's good news. So yes. Yeah, exactly. Hundreds. Yeah. So it was great. I mean, obviously, I would rather nobody have, rather nobody fall into the category. And obviously, we're going to count every one of those ballots, as I've talked before. But it seems to be a very modest number. So.
I would just like to know if you have specific responses to the president's sort of general accusations that election officials here and in other states are specifically finding ballots for Vice President Joe Biden or any other candidate. Are you seeing any evidence of that?
No. Again, I've been around for a lot of elections. In Pennsylvania, we have free, open elections, and the 67 counties, which is where these elections are administered, all across the state have been very open, very fair in the past, and so far, everything I've seen leads me to believe this election is no different.
I want to take this opportunity to explain how mail-in and absentee ballots work in Pennsylvania, so that you can understand and everybody can understand that you couldn't find a box of ballots somewhere. So the way it works in Pennsylvania, we don't just send ballots to voters. You have to apply for it. So there's a record where you've submitted an application, you've put in either your Social Security last four or your driver's license number, you've been checked against the PennDOT database or the Social Security database before you even, and against your voter record to make sure that you're actually registered and qualified voter in the county. You've put in your address, right, where you want the ballot mailed before you ever even get a ballot. So then when you submit your ballot, you've sent it back, you've signed the outer declaration on the outer envelope, and when the county gets your ballot, they're looking at your name on that declaration, and they're again checking to make sure that you actually applied for that ballot and were approved. So that's all public record. There are lists of the voters who fall into these categories, and it's why we're able to track the numbers of how many were applied for, how many were cast. They're all only by eligible voters. So if you found a box of ballots in a room, they would have to match up with a list of people who actually were qualified voters who got approved. So it literally could not happen in Pennsylvania. You could not find ballots. They are all accounted for, and there are party representatives, candidate representatives permitted for every single candidate and every party to be in the room, as Governor Wolf was talking about. It has never been so transparent, ever. You've got counties live streaming, you've got party and candidate representatives watching every step of that process. It's just not happening. There's no evidence of anything like what was alleged.